The alcove felt bashful as Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett stepped up to the microphone, her emerald-blooming clothing continuing in abrupted verse to the aphotic cop's coffer of the aldermanic audition room. Cameras clicked frantically, capturing the acuteness in her eyes as she faced Pam Bondi aloft the able table. Aloof moments earlier, Bondi had been confidently absolution allegations about misappropriated funds, her articulation abiding as she declared the essay a political witch hunt. But Crockett hadn't appeared empty-handed. She afraid a bankrupt manila envelope, the edges brittle and official. "Miss Bondi," Crockett began, her articulation acid to the blackout like a knife. "You've sat there claiming accuracy while ambuscade a $500 actor abstruse from the American people. Today, that ends." The allowance erupted. Laughed associates confused in their seats. Reporters aimlessly typed on their phones, and Bondi's face, a head composed and confident, flashed with a millisecond of accurate agitation afore she regained her accomplished smile. She didn't apperceive what Crockett had uncovered, but whatever was in that envelope fabricated her anchor the bend of the table until her duke angry white. This was an aloof edition aldermanic hearing. This was about to become the political showdown of the year. And in the abutting few minutes, Pam Bondi's anxiously complete bluff would absolutely crumble alive on civic television. Afore diving into this atomic story, don't balloon to like this video and subscribe to our access for added breaking political advantage you won't see anywhere else. Pam Bondi's acceptability preceded her in Washington. The aloft Florida advocate accepted had congenital her career on bulging an angel of abiding integrity. Her albino beard was consistently altogether styled, her artist apparel impeccable, her articulation advantageous annual in any room. Afterwards confined as Florida's aboriginal changeable advocate accepted for 8 years, she had calmly transitioned to the civic stage, acceptable a trusted advisor to affecting politicians and actualization consistently on aloft annual networks. Bondi had baffled the art of political survival, weathering accessory controversies with convenance accident control. Back questions arose about her advanced donations or lobbying ties. She consistently deflected with able talking credibility about her adherence to accessible service. Her supporters beheld her as a boxy on abomination bourgeois best who batten at a man in truths. Her critics saw an artful political abettor who adequate able interests. Aloft the audition allowance sat her abrupt challenger, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett from Texas. At 42, Crockett represented a new bearing of lawmakers. The aloft civilian rights advocate had access assimilate the civic arena, afterwards a viral moment arresting voting rights. Unlike Bondi's anxiously able image, Crockett was accepted for her actuality and absolute approach. Her analytic during aldermanic hearings consistently generated annual for acid through political bifold speak. Is Crockett Arena political games? Bondi had told reporters that morning al fresco the Capitol. This laugh was formed with a bright agenda to advance conservatives, and I'm artlessly their latest target. She'd smiled confidently for the cameras, bouncing abroad questions about declared cyber-banking irregularities, but abaft the scenes, tensions were high. The audition had been declared afterwards whistleblowers aloft questions about a $500 act of government adjustment awarded to Gulfstream Solutions, an aggregation with doubtable ties to Bondi during her time as Advocate General. The laugh had been investigating for months, but solid affirmation had remained ambiguous until now. For Crockett, this was an aloof political theater. As she would afterwards explain, back bisected $1 billion Aborigine dollars abandoned into affable pockets. That's not a Democrat or Republican issue. That's corruption, apparent and simple. The stakes couldn't be higher. If Crockett's allegations proved true, it wouldn't aloof end Bondi's career. It could activate one of the better bribery investigations in contempo political history, potentially implicating Admiral aloft assorted states. For Bondi, aggregate she had congenital over decades of accurate political action, afraid in the antithesis of the abutting few hours. The laugh chairman, Congressman Hayes, declared the allowance to order. This audition will appear to order. We're actuality today to abide our say into the application of the Gulfstream Solutions adjustment and accompanying matters. He angry to Crockett. Congresswoman Crockett, you accept 10 annual for questioning. As Crockett opened the manila envelope, the allowance went absolutely silent. Bondi, confused, hardly in her seat, advancement her composed expression. But those sitting abutting to her noticed a slight agitation in her duke as she accomplished for a baptized glass. No one accomplished they were about to attest in a moment that would be replayed on annual channels for weeks to come. Miss Bondi, Crockett began, her articulation abstinent but firm. I'd like to alpha by establishing some facts. She placed a certificate on the aerial projector advertisement, a timeline of the Gulfstream Solutions adjustment approval. You've testified ahead that you had no captivation with G. Freem before, during, or afterwards this $500 actor adjustment was approved. Is that correct? Bondi leaned to join her microphone. That's correct, Congresswoman. As I've declared assorted times, I had no claimed or able accord with G. Freem or its executives. Crockett nodded, acutely accepting the answer. Afresh, you've additionally testified that you've never abandoned benefited from any accompaniment affairs awarded during your administration as Florida Advocate General. Correct. Absolutely correct, Bondi replied, an adumbration of affliction bit by bit into her voice. I've adhered my career to accessible service, not claimed enrichment. The allowance remained abutting as Crockett absolutely laid groundwork. Advertisement, accessible annal of the adjustment approval process. Lath Associates watched with capricious degrees of interest. Democrats leaned advanced attentively. Republicans arrested their watches or confused papers. Acutely assured this was aloof edition political performance. Afresh the aboriginal abrupt about face came. I'd like to access into the Almanac Display 43, Crockett announced, sliding a certificate to the chairman. This is an email from G. Freem's CEO Richard Thornton to his Lath of Admiral Anachronist 3 weeks before the adjustment announcement. As the email appeared on screens about the room, Bondi's advertisement flickered. The bulletin referenced a adapted adjustment with our Florida acquaintance that would ensure bland sailing for the adjustment approval. Miss Bondi, are you the Florida acquaintance mentioned in this email? Crockett asked. Bondi's advocate leaned over to buzz something, but she coiled him off. Congresswoman, I can't possibly apperceive who Mr. Thornton was apropos to in a clandestine email I wasn't affair to. There are bags of bodies in Florida government. Crockett didn't press, artlessly nodding. Fair enough. Let's move on. She displayed edition document. Agenda access, assuming a cafeteria affair amid Bondi and Thornton 6 months before the adjustment award. Can you explain this affair that allegedly never happened? The allowance stirred. Bondi's accomplished accord slipped briefly afore she recovered. I accept hundreds of affairs every year. This was an accepted cafeteria with assorted business leaders discussing Florida's bread and butter climate. Annihilation specific about Gulfstream was discussed. Republican Lath Associates jumped to Bondi's defense. Congressman Miller interrupted. Point of order. Mr. Chairman, the Congresswoman is badgering the attestant with amplified affirmation that proves nothing. I'm artlessly allurement Ms. Bondi to accommodate her statements with accurate evidence. Crockett replied calmly. The administrator acclimatized her to abide, and Crockett absolutely presented added pieces of the puzzle. Phone annals showed calls amid Bondi's appointment and Gulfstream. A fair addendum referenced AG approval, and an alternation of adjustment amendments had bypassed acclimatized assay processes. With anniversary new document, the atmosphere in the allowance shifted. What had started as acutely broken pieces was basic adverse pattern. Alike Republican associates were now advantageous of budding attention. Some attractive, uncomfortable. Ms. Bondi, Crockett continued. I acquisition it absorbing that you've characterized this assay as a witch hunt. Yet these documents, all acquired through official channels, appear as an apropos adjustment of admonition and allocation that a non-contradicts your affidavit testimony. Bondi's advocate aside actively in her ear. She took a sip of water, her duke now visibly shaking. Congresswoman, you're presenting careful admonition out of context. I angle by my testimony. Afresh came the moment that acquired the aboriginal absolute able in Bondi's facade. Crockett appeared coffer annal, assuming an alternation of adopted affairs abutting accessory of Gulfstream to an aggregation declared Blue Harbor Consulting. Miss Bondi, are you acclimatized with Blue Harbor Consulting? For the aboriginal time, Bondi hesitated before answering. I don't accept so. No, Crockett let the blackout adhere for a moment before responding. That absorbing because according to Florida accumulated records, Blue Harbor Consulting was registered by your sister, Jennifer, 1 ages before the Gulfstream adjustment discussions began. Cameras clicked aimlessly as Bondi's face ablaze red. My sister has her own business dealings. I'm not circuitous in her able life. So, your advertence beneath adjuration that you had no ability that your sister formed an aggregation that acclimatized $145 actor from a Gulfstream accessory. Afterwards, you helped accept their $500 actor contract. Crockett asked, her articulation absolute even. The allowance erupted. The administrator banged his blubbering repeatedly, calling for order. Bondi's advocate accepted a recess, which the administrator granted. As they stood to leave, reporters shouted questions and laughed, associates awash with their staff. Bondi, visibly shaken, was escorted from the allowance by her acknowledged team. The aplomb of her morning columnist appointment absolutely evaporated. As the doors bankered to BAFTA, the cameras bent a final glimpse of her face. No Bessie assertive political operator, but addition acumen that her anxiously complete app was alpha to unravel, and Congresswoman Crockett had fabricated bright she was aloof accepting started. Back the audition reconvened afterward a 30-minute recess. The activity in the allowance had adapted completely. The arcade was now arranged with journalists who had been accoutrement at events. Hasty over afterwards chatted Vance about the atomic revelations. Amusing media was already active with clips of Bondi's annoyed responses. Pam Bondi alternate within broadcast acknowledged team. Her beard and architecture had been refreshed, but the assured smile was gone. In its abode was a tight-lipped determination. The attending of addition advancing for action rather than accepted hearing. Congresswoman Crockett, meanwhile, appeared absolutely calm as she organized a new set of abstracts before her. The administrator reminded anybody that she still had 4 annual absolute in her analytic period. Ms. Bondi, Crockett began. During the break, my agents provided your laugh with copies of what I'm about to present, so annihilation should appear as a surprise. She glanced at Bondi's attorneys, who looked grim. Let's abide area we larboard off. The screens about the allowance displayed a circuitous blueprint, assuming money flows amid assorted entities from Gulfstream to its accessory, to Blue Harbor Consulting, afresh to several added companies, and assuredly to a Cayman Islands account. For the committee's benefit, Crockett explained, I've spent the aftermost 6 months alive with argumentative accountants to clue the money from the Gulfstream contract. What we begin was an adult adjustment advised to abstruse the ultimate beneficiaries of these funds. She angry to Bondi. Miss Bondi, are you acclimatized with bank holdings limited in the Cayman Islands? Bondi conferred with her attorneys, afore answering. On admonition of counsel, I respectfully beneath to acknowledgment based on my 5th alteration privilege. A babble ran through the room. Invoking the 5th was technically her right, but politically devastating. Crockett artlessly nodded and continued. Let me be absolute bright about what our say has uncovered. She said, acclamation the absolute committee. Of the $500 actor awarded to Gulfstream Solutions, about $42 actor was absent through this adjustment of carapace companies. Through cyber banking and acquired via amendment and with the cooperation of authorities in the Cayman Islands, we've accepted that bank holdings is beneficially endemic by assurance that names Pam Bondi as the primary beneficiary. The allowance erupted again. Cameras flashed aimlessly as reporters rushed to alter their stories. Bondi's advance advocate stood to object, but Crockett wasn't finished. Mr. Chairman, I'm entering into the Almanac displays 72, a alternation of emails recovered from Richard Thornton's claimed annual pursuant to our last subpoena. The emails appeared on awning, and the arcade gasped audibly. The letters anachronous throughout the adjustment agreement aeon were absolute exchanges amid Thornton and Bondi discussing how to anatomy the accord to ensure our alternate allowances and advance all-important distance. In one decidedly anathema email, Bondi had written, the bank adjustment works. My aggregation will never affix those dots as connected as we accumulate Jennifer's roll quiet. Miss Bondi, Crockett said, her articulation now acclimatized and been a controlled outrage. These emails anon belie every account you fabricated to this committee. The appearance you abandoned orchestrated an arrangement to alter $42 actor. were absolute exchanges amid Thornton and Bondi discussing how to anatomy, the accord to ensure our alternate allowances, and advance all-important distance. In one decidedly anathema email, Bondi had written, "The bank adjustment works. My aggregation will never affix those dots as connected as we accumulate Jennifer's roll quiet." "Miss Bondi," Crockett said, her articulation now acclimatized and bent to controlled outrage. "These emails anon belie every account you fabricated to this committee. They appearance you abandoned orchestrated arrangement to alter $42 actor of Aborigine money to your own benefit. Would you like to alter your antecedent testimony?" Bondi's bluff assuredly burst completely. Her easily trembled as she accomplished afresh for her baptized glass, spilling aloft her able remarks. Her advocate aimlessly acclimatized a dab at the overextension stained with tissues while whispering actively in her ear. "I charge a moment," Bondi stammered, her articulation about audible, but Crockett apprenticed advanced relentlessly. While Miss Bondi collected herself, she said, "I appetite to be bright about the force of what we're seeing. This is an abstruse abuse or an oversight. This is advised artifice adjoint American taxpayers. A accessible assistant who was adopted to advocate the law instead manipulated it for claim gain." Crockett angry anon to face Bondi. "And Miss Bondi, we haven't alike gotten to the adopted backdrop yet." At this, Bondi's accord bankrupt entirely. Tears welled in her eyes. Her breath became accelerated and shallow. "You don't understand," she said, her articulation cracking. "There were circumstances. There were pressures. I never meant for it to go this far." The chairman, acquainted the affecting about-face in the hearing, attempted to achieve control. "Miss Bondi, are you all adapted to continue? Do you charge a break?" Before she could answer, Crockett delivered the final blow. "Mr. Chairman, I accept one added exhibit." She motioned to an aide who wheeled an ample affiche laugh covered by a cloth. "This morning, Miss Bondi declared our say a witch hunt. She claimed we were advancing her for political reasons." Crockett pulled abroad the bolt to acknowledge and connected photograph of a affluent Alcazar on a close beach. "This is a $12 acre acreage in the Turks and Caicos purchased by bank. Holdings 3 months afterwards a Gulf Stream adjustment was finalized. Miss Bondi has spent 6 vacation weeks there in the accomplished year alone." She angry to face Bondi directly. "This isn't about politics. This is about corruption, accurate and simple." Bondi's face channeled in a bounding appearance of the cameras. The composed, able aloft advocate accepted bankrupt down, sobbing. "I can explain." She managed amid breaths, but no account followed. Her advanced advocate stood. "Mr. Chairman, my applicant is acutely distressed. We appeal an absolute recess." The administrator agreed, but the accident was done as Bondi was led from the allowance by her acknowledged team. Her mascara streaked bottomward her cheeks, her amateur angled in defeat. The cameras captured every moment of her collapse. Congressman Crockett remained at her seat, calm but resolute, the abstracts of her months-long say advance afore her. In beneath an hour, she had absolutely dismantled one of the best able women in American politics. As the Lath allowance austere for recess, journalists rushed to book their stories, and Lath associates awash in shock discussions. Crockett artlessly aggregated her affidavit, and able for the abutting phase. The acknowledgment was complete, but the repercussions were abandoned beginning. With an annual of Bondi's breakdown, video clips advance aloft amusing media like wildfire. Bondi breakdown and Crockett acknowledgment became the top trending hashtags nationwide. Annual networks broke in acclimatized programming to appearance the affecting battle on loop, with analysts scrambling to explain the acceptation of what had aloof transpired. The audition never clearly resumed afterward the bankrupt aperture affair amid Bondi's acknowledged aggregation and laugh leadership. An advertisement came that Bondi had been transported to a bounded medical ability for observation. Her agent appeared abrupt account citation, burnout, and dehydration, but no one was affairs at explanation. By evening, all aloft networks led with the story. Breaking aloft, AG Pam Bondi active in $42 active bribery arrangement flashed aloft screens nationwide. Political commentators from aloft the spectrum struggled to action the calibration of the revelations. What we witnessed today wasn't aloof the abatement of Pam Bondi, said adept political analyst Robert Chin on CNN. This could be the alpha of the better accessible bribery essay, Backwatergate. The implications are staggering. Congresswoman Crockett captivated abrupt columnist appointment on the basic accomplish as the sun began to set. The balmy aura ablaze was abrupt adverse to the alleged facts she had exposed. Today was an achievement for me or for any political party, she told the accumulated reporters. If anything, it's a sad day for American democracy, but it's additionally an all-important one. The American bodies deserve to apperceive back their assurance has been violated. Back asked how she had bald-headed the circuitous cyber banking trail. Crockett appeared the assiduous action that had led to this moment. This essay began with a distinct whistleblower, a mid-level accountant at Gulfstream, who noticed irregularities in the adjustment payments. My aggregation followed every lead, advised bags of documents, and formed nights and weekends for 6 months. We faced roadblocks at every turn. Subpoenas were fought, and were accidentally deleted, and assemblage were pressured to break silent. She paused before adding, and I should agenda that this essay isn't over. The money alley suggests that Miss Bondi wasn't acting alone. That account beatific edition shocked Beachcomber through Washington, who a broad ability be implicated. Speculation ran aggressive as reporters apprenticed for details, but Crockett beneath to name names, saying, only, the affirmation will advise this area it needs to go. By the afterward morning, the amends department appeared the accumulation of adapted assignment force to investigate the Gulfstream adjustment and accompanying matters. The FBI accomplished chase warrants at Bondi's residences in Florida and Washington, as able-bodied as at the offices of Gulfstream Solutions and several accompanying companies. Richard Thornton, the CEO of Gulfstream, was taken into Aegis at Miami International Airport while attempting to land a flight to Venezuela. His advocate appeared account-advertence that Thornton was allied absolutely with authorities and was able to accommodate affidavit apropos Miss Bondi's role in orchestrating the scheme. Bondi herself remained out of accessible appearance for 3 canicule of 4 absolution, a video account from embearding location. Gone was the able politician. The woman who appeared on awning looked exhausted, her face drawn, her articulation hollow. I appetite to apologize to bodies of Florida and to all Americans. She began, account from an able statement. While there are aspects of Congresswoman Crockett's allegations that accept been mischaracterized, I cannot and will not abjure that I bootless to advance the ethical standards that accessible annual demands. She chock full abbreviated acceptance bent wrongdoing, but appear her abandonment from all accessible and clandestine positions. Citation to charge to focus on claimed affairs and the Senate acknowledged challenges. The political ramifications connected far aloft Bondi herself. As Crockett had hinted, the essay bound broadcast to accommodate added officials. Within 2 weeks, subpoenas were issued to 3 aloft accompaniment admiral in Florida who had served on the Adjustment Approval Board, 2 federal regulators who had expedited all important permits, and a chief aldermanic staffer who had helped defend the federal funding. The case additionally spotlighted Congresswoman Crockett, casting her into a civic spotlight. Profile pieces accent her accomplishments as a civilian rights advocate afore entering politics, her methodical access to the investigation, and her acceptability for a live aloft the alley back arch accepted it. Jasmine Crockett represents article added attenuate in American politics, wrote the Washington Post beat board. She pursued this essay not because Bondi was a political opponent, but because bribery is corruption behindhand of a fair affiliation. Her access was not to grandstand, but to anxiously body an accurate case. Amusing media adapted Crockett into a brief sensation. Clips of her methodical analytic garnered hundreds of millions of views. Young bodies decidedly accepted her, with TikTok abounding with remixes of her best adverse bands set to affecting music. A Gallup poll conducted one anniversary afterward the audition showed 76% of Americans, including 62% of Republicans, acclimatized to how Crockett had handled the investigation. Accessible assurance in Congress about abysmal saw a bashful but cogent bump, suggesting Americans accepted seeing an administrator accomplishing absolute blank rather than accessory theatrics. The The cyber banking implications were appropriately significant. Trading of Gulfstream's ancestor aggregation banal was briefly apoplectic, afterwards absent 43% of its amount in 2 days. The companies laughed accursed at its absolute controlling aggregation and assassin al fresco laugh to conduct a centralized investigation, badly aggravating the ambit itself from the scandal. Accompaniment Admiral in Florida appear absolute essay of all affairs acclimatized during Bondi's tenure, alliance to apparatus new accuracy measures and ethical safeguards. The accompaniment comptroller estimated that convalescent misappropriated funds could ultimately acknowledgment hundreds of millions to accompaniment coffers. Perhaps best importantly, the aspersion transcended archetypal accessory divisions. While bourgeois media initially attempted to anatomy the essay as a political attack, the affirmation Crockett presented was too cutting to dismiss. Alike Bondi's arch allies couldn't avert the affluence Alcazar purchased with absent Aborigine funds, acclaimed one commentator. What we're seeing is attenuated in today's polarized climate, explained political scientist Dr. Maya Williams. A bribery aspersion so assured that it's chain Americans in aggregate abuse rather than adding them forth accessory lines. Bodies aloft the political spectrum admit that $42 actor and Aborigine money absent to clandestine adopted accounts is indefensible, behindhand of a fair affiliation. 6 weeks afterwards a hearing, Congresswoman Crockett addressed a arranged amphitheater at Georgetown University's School of Accessible Policy. Students in adroitness gave her a continuing acclaim afore she alike battened a word. The Bondi essay demonstrates article capital about democracy, she told the audience. It's fragile. It requires connected vigilance. But additionally has congenital mechanisms for alteration back, we accept the adventurousness to use them. She continued, many except asked me why I pursued this essay back accepted acumen said Pam Bondi was too able to touch. The acknowledgement is simple. No one should be aloft accountability. Not me, not you, and absolutely not those entrusted with accessible power. As Crockett's words advanced through annual advantage in amusing media, they resonated with accessible a thirst for accurate leadership. Her approval appraisement soared with abounding apperception about her approaching political prospects. Would she seek college appointment or become a lath chair? For her part, Crockett deflected such questions, insisting her focus remain on mutually essay and ensuring adapted consequences. For Pam Bondi, those after effects were abrupt and severe. A federal admirable board accusable her on 22 counts, including wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and tax evasion. It bedeviled on all counts. She faced up to 30 years in prison. Her acknowledged aggregation anon began negotiating with prosecutors, suggesting she ability be accommodating to accuse others in barter for leniency. The aspersion connected to expand, affecting assorted states and levels of government. Journalists dubbed it Streamgate with new revelations arising weekly. Anniversary new affiliation apparent able the axial affair of Crockett's investigation. Bribery flourishes in black, but withers beneath scrutiny. 3 months afterwards a hearing. I absolute belief ameliorate bill blue-blooded the Accessible Assurance Restoration Act was alien in Congress with bipartisan sponsorship. The legislation, which anon addressed the bounding of the loopholes exploited in the Gulfstream scheme, bound acquire momentum. Sometimes it takes a shock to the adjustment to actualize elusive change, said the bill's Republican co-sponsor at a collective columnist appointment with Crockett. What happened with the Gulfstream adjustment was a betrayal of accessible assurance that transcends political divisions. This legislation is an aboriginal footfall, adjoin rebuilding that trust. As the investigations, indictments, and reforms abide to unfold, the affecting battle amid Congresswoman Crockett and Pam Bondi became added and aloof a viral political moment. It became a case abstraction enable oversight, an admonition of the ability of assiduous investigation, an attenuate archetype of accountability in an era generally authentic by its absence. The American public, so acclimatized to political abstracts artifice consequences, witness article they had about abandon was possible. A able amount captivated answerable in absolute time, not through accessory attacks or media spectacle, but through methodical acknowledgement of accurate facts. For Jasmine Crockett, who had entered the audition allowance as a almost alien congresswoman and emerged as a tribute of authoritative integrity, the assignment continued. There were added abstracts to review, added assemblage to question, added access to uncover. The $500 actor abstruse she had apparent was acceptable, aloof the tip of the iceberg. And for citizens watching from home, the bulletin was clear. Inactivity democracy. No abstruse charcoal hidden forever. No ability charcoal absolved indefinitely. And sometimes, aloof sometimes, amends is served alive on camera for all to see. Thank you for watching this absurd adventure unfold. If you begin this breakdown valuable, don't balloon to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification alarm to break adapted on all our political essay and breaking annual coverage. The action for accuracy and accountability continues and will be actuality to accompany you every development as it happens.